Hi everyone, welcome to the Scrapbooking Photographer. Lynda is my name, and today I am here to take part in Mix It Up Monday YouTube Hop, where everybody who takes part is given a sketch that they mix traditional scrapbooking with some mixed media. So the sketch we've been given this month is delightful. It's this one here. Which also inspired me to use the new colour of the year this year for Close to My Heart, which is called Journey, and it's this very beautiful dark teal colour. So then when I was thinking about what photos to use, I came up with one that I took last year of a tui, which is a native New Zealand bird. They're not very big, but they have two voice boxes and they sing just beautifully. Now, sometimes when you see them in the trees or when they're in stories, they're noted as being black and white, but actually there's a lot of colour in a tui, and the journey colour just comes in through the feathers here, and they all have this little white tuft at their neck which vibrates when they sing. So they're an absolutely beautiful bird. So that's my photo. It's bigger than the 4x6, so I'm just going to have to work the mixed media and other things around it. So the other things I'm going to use today are the stamp of the month. I'm hopefully going to use that. I'm not 100% sure yet until it comes together. I also have the design elements stamp from the current catalogue, some leaves, and I found a feather in an old stamp of the month from some time ago, so that might come in useful too. I've got my good old fan brush, and because of the circles that are on the sketch, I have got out this die cut, which I'll also be using. And the colours to go with the journey, I've decided on espresso and pine. Just because these are the colours that the bird seems to show off. So let's see what we can come up with. And looking at the sketch, the first thing I'm going to do is mount the photo on the bits so that I get an idea of where it's going to sit on the page before I start adding the media. So working backwards from the white cardstock, I want to do some mixed media in the journey colour, so that's going to be next. And then I want a contrasting piece in front of that, which will be my espresso. Now there's a little piece of note paper that the sketch has above the mounted photo. I don't have note paper, but I will use some of this patterned pine paper to bring in a little bit of the pine colour. And then the photo, I want to bring some journey in, and I think some journey paper just contrasts quite nicely with the edge of the photo there. And then I'll either use that around the outside or a little bit of glitter paper, which is quite nice too. So the first thing to do is to mount this photo in here. Okay, so we have the bird here. Now you can see that my blade is still a little blunt, so I'm just going to go quickly around the outside with the ink pad. And then we can mount that one. Okay, I really like the idea of some blanks, so I'm just going to bring a piece of this and cut it down about there. And I don't want it to go the whole way around, just a little bit to highlight Birdie. So I'll speed up the rest of this video and just talk my way through it. So I'm just putting the birdie onto the glitter paper, and sometimes the normal double-sided tape doesn't work. So if it doesn't hold, I'll come back with some glue a bit later. And then I'll just trim the zip strip off that patterned piece of pine and cut a little piece off that's going to go behind the glitter paper. And I decided to just tear the top of that to show through some of the white core, to fit in with the white of the cardstock at the background, but also just to give a different edge rather than the straight edge of all the other mounting papers. And lastly, all those layers get mounted on top of a piece of espresso at an angle, which I think adds a nice touch. So once I've trimmed that, I can go in and stick everything down. Again, I'll check that glitter paper later. So once I've got it on the espresso, I'll bring in the piece of white daisy cardstock, and then I realise that I have got the angle wrong, so I undo it and re-adhere it, and that's better. That's the way we want it to sit on the page. So using my pencil, I'm just going to mark where that piece of espresso goes so that I don't waste any ink when I come to do my mixed media around the outside. So then I grabbed my Journey ink, and squeezing the lid on the ink pad gives a nice bit of ink on the lid, which I can squeeze some water on. And using a little plastic bag, it's actually a little bit too little for my hand, but it does the job, of transferring the wet ink from the watered down ink from the lid of the stamp pad onto the white daisy. Now, in between re-topping up, I do use a paper towel to clean out the lid properly, because squeezing it back against the ink pad will contaminate it if I leave the water on there. So I go through this process a few times and just spread this ink around where we marked that the photo will sit. So while I'm doing the next couple of rounds of that and finishing up the inking around the outside, I'll just mention that there will be lots of other people doing this Mix It Up Monday hop with loads of inspiration of that same sketch, so really worth watching them all to get lots of new ideas. So that's just about finished. I'm just using up the very last pieces of ink off the lid, but I'll still clean it out properly to make sure it's clean before I put it back on. Checking the photo, it looks like we've got enough coverage. So the next thing I do is bring in the splash box, and using the same technique to get some watered down ink on the lid of the Journey, using the fan brush just to pick it up and splatter it around the outsides. So our initial mixed media is the spread of the ink, and this is just ending up with dots splattered around the outside. So again, using it all up out of the lid and then cleaning the lid properly before I put it back onto the ink pad. Once that's had a little bit of time to dry, I'll bring in my Versamat upside down with the sponge side up, and that will give us a good base to stamp on. And the first stamp I'm going to use is from the design elements in the current catalogue for Close to My Heart, and so I haven't used it before, so have seasoned it on my hand. And using the Journey ink again, I'm just spotting it around in different spots in 3 corners. So because this is a primary stamp going on top of the watered down ink, it stands out quite nicely, and I'll do the same with this feather from an old Stamp of the Month. So I'm angling these feathers so that some of them fit underneath where the picture will go, and others will just be around the outside. And again, still in the Journey ink and over the top of the texture that we had there earlier. So just to add a little bit of contrast, I then bring in the espresso ink and do the same with the feathers, but so it's not too strong, I'm secondary stamping them, which just means stamping onto a scrap piece of paper first and then directly onto the page, so that it's kind of a faded look. And I do the same with some notes, but I also do the notes in primary as well. So I thought the notes were quite appropriate given how much the Tui sings. And that's how he's going to look sitting there. And then I think it would look quite good with a Journey frame around the outside. So putting it behind, it looks quite good, but it does mean I need to trim 1/4 of an inch off each side. Now there's a couple of ways I could do this. I could either do 1/2 inch off two sides or the 1/4 inch off each side. And because I've got quite close to the edge and I don't really want to chop off parts of the notes, I decided to do a 1/4 inch off each side. But just before I attach it, I want to go around the outside of the white daisy and just smooth off that cut edge that I've just made a little bit. So I do that with a blending brush and the Junie ink, and it just covers some of those frayed bits. My blade is a little bit blunt, and so this just kind of evens it up, and it also blends the white daisy nicely into the Junie colour that's coming behind it. Once that's all done, I can then bring back the frame and it's time really to stick everything down. So I go ahead and adhere the white to the Junie and then the mounted photo as well. So the sketch has these rings going through the middle. I don't have room for as many as the sketch because of the size of the photo, but I do like the effect they have, so I'm just going to use one and trim it in half and use a half on each side. So lining it up to make sure that they are in fact at the same height. I've used the ruler, so once I've put one in, I can put some sticky on the second one, and then I'll bring in firstly my mat and secondly a ruler just to level up the bottom of the circles, and then I can pop the left one in there too, and they've got straight edges so they just go to the edge of the white daisy. Then it's time for the title. So it's just a 3-word title. I'm simply going to call it Tui, and so I'm going to cut out the 3 letters from espresso cardstock using the Cuttlebug, and then I'll just bring them in and stick them down the bottom there in that little gap. Quite nice the way that brings in a little bit more espresso, I think. And then it just still needs something extra, so I found my daisy thin cuts and I cut 2 of the bigger daisy, one in the white and one in the Junie. The centerpiece I did in Junie also, but in the lighter side. And just to take some of the starkness off that white, using my blending brush with the Junie ink, just gradually brush over the white to tone it down a little bit and blend it in with the Junie that's going on front of it. So then I can stick all that down and it's time to add some gems. I have some Junie glitter gems and they come in 2 sizes, so I'll just scatter those around once this daisy's stuck down. I hope you've enjoyed this video today, and thank you to those of you who have already subscribed to my channel. Your support is really appreciated. If you haven't yet subscribed, there's no charge to subscribe to a YouTube channel, so hopefully you've enjoyed today's video enough to push that subscribe button and follow along on future videos to see what we come up with. I do try and do something fairly regularly to cover close to my heart product and coordinate with as many hops as I can fit in on this YouTube channel. But whether you're a subscriber or not, thank you very much for watching today. As you can see, the finished product is a little different to the sketch that we started with, but I'm really happy with the outcome and I look forward to seeing what everybody else has done. Happy crafting, everyone!